So now we turn to our spotlight section, and this is in two halves this week. We are going to talk about Android 13 Beta 1, but firstly, we're going to talk about the new features in 12.2, which has started to drop. I don't know if it's finished dropping yet, but some of you will have noticed it's started to drop in the Play Store. You'll have updated. Google started rolling that out last week, and it will eventually roll out to everyone if it hasn't so far. And it's an interesting update, this one, isn't it, Warren? A fair few new features have dropped.
It is an interesting one. And I think because this is one of those things that people have been asking for a while. And that has to do with that image description. Now, we did have it in some way back then in 12.1, but like I always said back then, it was poorly implemented or not implemented properly. And I think that now, though we have a proper implementation of it, and that's that image text description or whatever that people have been asking for. Now, personally, do I care about it? Maybe not so much, but I know people that live or die by those type of things, and I'm glad to see that we have it. Personally, I would love to see that we have some of the more pressing needs that we've been talking about. For instance, maybe something like being able to selectively make copies or select something on the page, a web page, non-edit fields, and be able to copy those things. I think to me that trumps everything else. But I understand the importance of this. People want to see where, hey, there's a dog there, eating its food, or there's someone there with their bikini or whatever. I don't give a right about it, but I'm glad we have it because it's something that you also notice, though, Ed. It's there, like, on some browsers, especially Google Chrome, and Microsoft just implemented that, I think maybe about a month ago, where you could have image description. You have to turn it on. But then even with theirs, there are limitations. There are certain things that it's not going to tell you. I tried enabling it on my um, Edge browser, and every time I enables it, it just crashes. I don't know if any of you has had any ability to have it work for you guys. It just never worked for me.
I mean, I think your first problem is you're using Edge. But yeah, I don't generally turn that kind of stuff on. So, I mean, I'm probably the worst one to use as an example there. But I have heard people who've turned it on within Google Chrome, and they say for the most part, as long as the picture isn't super complicated or very busy, it has some pretty good descriptions. But the more busier the photo, the less likely you are to get a description.
Yeah, I've tended to turn it on in the screen reader rather than the browser, so I've turned it on in the narrator. What you'll find in apps is that Facebook and other social media apps will both allow you to set an alt text, but also will try and guess some alt text on certain pictures as well. So they will try and cover that off. I think this will be good in the talkback setting. You can find a photo. Essentially, what you will do is bring up the talkback menu, and image descriptions will be at the bottom or somewhere in the actions menu anyway, and it will describe that image for you. I think it's an interesting feature. Whether they could make it a bit more automated, a bit like they tried to do in some of the stuff in 12.1, I'm not sure. It seems a bit manual in 12.2, but I think it's good that it exists. Another feature in 12.2, I mean, I really like this. I know a lot of people really don't. Essentially, what Talkback would let you do in certain circumstances is use your volume keys to adjust increments that weren't volumes. So you could use it to adjust talkback sliders or other sliders. You could use them to edit text. I never really like this. I want my volume keys to adjust the volume. I don't want them doing other things. And Talkback have changed this, haven't they, Warren? So essentially, this thing is going to be done on screen now.
It's interesting you mentioned that, and you and I happen to be on the same page because to me, I would like the volume keys to do what they're meant to do. And so it's absolutely nice to see that we can just simply, when you're on a slider or when you're on a volume slider and you want to adjust the volume, or when you're in an edit field, instead of using those volume keys, you just either swipe up or down to change those sliders, or turn up those volumes. And I really like that because there are a lot of things that take advantage of the volume keys, and we're not able to get those because those volume keys are tied to the talkback, and it makes it hard. For example, you could use your volume key to either take a picture or zoom or whatever, and we have apps like that that have the volume keys that one could take advantage of. But when you're using a screen reader based on what it has and has that volume tied to it, you can take advantage of that. So I'm looking forward to when they can get this thing totally decoupled from the volume keys, so we could take advantage of the native apps that have those capabilities of using those volume keys. And just it's easier to just do this with swiping up or down, but I know people are going to have difficulty or complain about it. But I do understand, change is really hard. But I think that with time, though, people may grow to love it, and it's not a bad thing at all. Doug, what do you think about that?
I kind of sit in the middle. I think what they could do, instead of doing a hard disconnect, I think it should be something that may even be usable as a toggle. Because I'm looking at it kind of perspective of people who have dexterity difficulties. It may be actually easier for them to use the volume buttons to manage the sliders or navigating their text with the volume buttons opposed to the swipes. Personally, it irritates the hell out of me that I have to go and turn Talkback off if I want to use the volume buttons to take a selfie. I mean, defeats the purpose of me having Talkback on to tell me if my face is in view if I have to turn it off to make use of those buttons. So I think if we could have it set up as a toggle button for complete disconnect, or having it where we can use the buttons, that's probably be a perfect happy medium where everybody would be able to have exactly what they want. Because personally, I've always just used the swipe gestures to navigate the slider bars, or navigate my text. I've rarely used those volume buttons. So for me, it's useless having them tied to Talkback. But I also see the point of having them connected.
Oh, well, that's the first. I've agreed with both Doug and Warren. It's unusual. I think I suggested on our email list that it ought to be a toggle. But Doug, one thing: no one needs your face in view. Okay.
You're one to talk there, Ed.
No one does.
Back to dexterity issues, though, if one is able to use the phone, because the phone has to do with a lot of touches. If you have dexterity issues to where you cannot swipe up or down, then I'm not sure you're going to be able to use the phone from the get-go. You know what I mean? I think it would even be harder
It's
for
about
someone.
flattening the curve. It's about making it easier, though, isn't it? Like if you have dexterity issues, maybe give a sucker an even break and let them use some volume buttons for stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I know people in my own life who they actually have dexterity issues because they've damaged their hands or because of arthritis, something like that. They can do simple touches on their phone, but they have to use other tools to do swipe gestures because their hands just can't do it.
Yeah, but I'm thinking it would be harder though for someone with dexterity issues to do a precise pressing of a hard button and things like that. I
Because the
don't know.
button's always there, isn't it? You can just lean on it. It's
Yeah, I guess you could lean on it.
There are ways that the buttons can be made. Like I haven't found a phone that's too difficult to press the buttons. I mean, you add a case on, it gets a little harder. But yeah, like I definitely think that the buttons are something that should be an option opposed to a hard. We're not going to allow those to be used.
Yeah, that was my suggestion on an email list. But Dugaboo, if your face is in view, that's what the toggle to back camera button's for.
Ed, at least I can't make babies cry with my face.
But there's something there though in the accessibility settings for people who really have dexterity issues. They could also use those connected things if you want to make your phone easier for you. If you're having difficulty, probably one should invest in one of those controls.
Exactly.
They could.
But
Yeah.
the use of your volume buttons, those are still considered switches. So having that added into the dexterity section and under accessibility, that would actually be a very smart thing to do.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's where we have it for starting some actions. You could use those, remap those volumes to start other things, but I
exactly.
think that
Yeah.
the part about the editing or adjusting sliders, that's where the issue is. But like you guys have appropriately put it, though, it could be a toggle. So someone prefers doing that, let them have at it. For
Yeah.
me, I'm
I'm
glad.
with
I
you.
like what we have.
Yeah, I didn't like it that's what they did, but I can see why people might want it. So it should be a toggle. The other feature to talk about, I think, is it's a development of what happened in 12.1, and it's this Windows idea, so that when you touch on different parts of the screen, it will tell you whether you're in the navigation bar, the main part of the window, um, whether it's the notification system thing at the top. I think in some ways 12.2 has made this better, and in some ways it's made it worse. So what you can do is now toggle off the system windows, which are the navigation bar and the bit at the top. What seems to have happened though is the middle window, you can't turn it off, and it's become significantly more verbose. So I get, what I didn't get in 12.1 and I do get in 12.2 is I'll touch the keyboard and it'll go Gboard window. I'll touch an email message and it'll say Aquamail window, even though it was not that verbose in 12.1. Although you can change when those window announcements come either before or after the controls, and you can turn them off for system windows. But yeah, I think they have a ways to go on this window thing. Don't know what you think, Warren.
So that Windows thing is like a blessing and a curse all put together, and it gives you a pretty lady out there. Um, so there are people that love this, and there are people that hate this. But like you said earlier, though, Aid, you can toggle that thing off, even so that what happens is that it says it after you've touched the thing. And I noticed, like you said, in Gboard, for example, maybe I tap G and then Gboard Windows or whatever to that effect. Now, yeah, so I'm looking forward to when they can actually make this behave the way that it is, or you get rid of it totally if people don't like it. To me, it doesn't bother me, but little things like this could be annoyances for some people, and yet some of us just kind of overlook that. So you put me down in that column of those people that just overlook that. I don't stay long enough to hear some of those things, so when I'm using my phone, so to me it's of no significance.
I don't really use the window toggles or navigation whatsoever. I actually find it to be more of a hindrance.
Yeah, I think it's that they talk unprompted. I think this is a thing that never needed to happen. I don't know why anyone thought we wanted it. I would have, you know, not introduced it in 12, and it doesn't seem to add a great deal, and is a bit annoying. Like you say, Warren, you can overlook it, so it's fine. But yeah, I think we could just scrap it.
I think the parent of that was back in maybe even 12, or I don't know when we started hearing that system navigation. Like when if you
Yeah,
have your nav keys enabled, then it will say home system or whatever.
I think it was 12.
Yeah, that's the parent of it. That's where it all came from, and it has not quite gone away. So they changed it to saying Windows instead of that. So therein lies the problem. Unless we get rid of that Papa, and then have the grandkid not have that trait, then probably that might be what solves it.
Be. Any other features in 12.2 you want to talk about, Warren?
I think those are the most significant things that we see in that 12.2. So we'll see what the next version may be. You know, these guys are always working on things contrary to what something that, you know, these guys are not working. These guys are doing a good job out there. Kudos to you guys. If you're from the Talkback development team, we love you guys. Keep doing the right thing.
And the really right thing is obviously to expand your beta program globally. But we'll leave that there.
Okay.